Just a little quick history for me on this project. So I worked for the city from 2006 to 2012. While I was here, we created the utility and implemented it. And then I left for 8 years. We came back just 3 years ago to the city. So that would play a little bit into what I talk about as I go through the presentation. But with the planning of the utility, the city was just at a point where we needed to fund our stormwater program. We had a backlog of capital improvements. We needed to improve our maintenance, and we needed to reach compliance with my job at the time. So we didn't do a big rate study. We kind of simplified our considerations. We said, okay, what do we need if we're going to fund operations to meet our goals? And then also if we're going to set a little money as capital to look like. And then also consider what was reasonable to the community. So we landed on $500,000. It was in the 460 to 480 range. Is what we really needed. So we started to plan the implementation, which began with determining what an ERU, or the equivalent residential unit size, was for Danville. So we had a GIS technician at the time that in-house. We pulled out a sample size of about 400 homes, which Danville was about 17,000 population. We had about 6,000 residential. I think I have that number later on in the presentation. But so that gave us a good, significant, statistically significant number that we could then get an average ERU size off of, which we landed at 3,813 square feet. So then that is next task at the time was to measure all of the non-single family areas, which took a significant amount of time. That was a lot of in-house work. We were lucky to have him at the time that he was able to do it. We're in the same situation now. It was really difficult for us to do without using outside help, which is one of the obstacles I'll talk about. So then looking at that gave us a total number of ERUs for the community. Put that into our goal, and we landed on $3.36 each ERU. So we rolled it out pretty quickly. The city owns the water and sewer utility throughout most of Boyle County, but all of Danville, and that's the area we live in, which is anything inside the city of Danville. So we added the stormwater fee to the water bill. It was an easy way for us to do it. For single family residential, we just were able to add it straight to our bills. For non-single family residential, we went through all of our non-single family residential properties and determined whether it was a water bill attached to those addresses. If there was, we added it to that bill, but otherwise we sent it to the property on the DBA data. If that owner didn't have a water bill attached, that created a new bill for you. And it was the stormwater only fee that came on that bill. Some of our initial opposition right out of the gate, multi-family residential landlords were the biggest opposition we received. It was just, I think it was more difficult for them to implement, and I'll talk about that on the next slide a little bit, the things we did to try to accommodate that, and probably some mistakes with churches. The huge jump on their water bill for churches, pretty much minimum bills to several $100 a month bills. So that they were a big component of that. And then vacant lots, which, this is one of those items that I don't know if we did it the right way or not. We included vacant lots as one unit. So if there is a vacant lot in the community, if there's no structure, no immediate charge with one ERU every month, that causes a lot of difficulties for us in the house as far as how we build, how the property moves, and how we determine who the owner is, and just how we even identify it on the bill. So, and then city messaging, I wanted to throw this out there because, at the time we got some opposition, but it didn't turn necessarily ugly for how things can get sometimes in small towns. The biggest message I put out to people that would come in and complain to me is it was a fair distribution of fees for the stormwater system. I've got a list of our biggest customers, contributors to the stormwater utility later. Center College, and we have a regional hospital in McDowell. Once I told people that they were paying their fair share, those folks in town were okay with them because they oftentimes see those entities as getting things without having to pay taxes, which we all know that's not their contributing in a bigger way than people realize to our revenue. But it was a way for people to understand why we were using the tool we were using with the stormwater fee. Instead of just taking it out of general fund taxes, we were more fairly charging those that were contributing to the stormwater system. And then one of the things that we try to do is as soon as we roll this fee out, we immediately increase our presence in the field, maintaining our existing system. We took a staff, a crew of two, they get paid out of the stormwater fund. We sent them out and just had them start working on drainage problems around the city. And just having our presence out there, I feel like helped us in the community to realize that. Just next slide. obstacles, complexities. I talked a little bit landlord and tenants. The landlords in town wanted us to pass the bill along to them. They wanted us to bill the tenants directly instead of billing them. And that's a real struggle for us because if we bill that landlord, it's more accurate. But it's easier for us to bill the tenant because then it's tied to that water bill. If it's tied to the landlord, we need to keep track of who owns the property, if it's property transfers, which we'll talk about a little bit. That's the next slide. The next item is property transfers. How do we track those? Whose responsibility is to track those? So it's easier for us to put it with the tenant, but that's not the most accurate way to do it because when you're breaking out, you have a 4-unit building that has 6 ERUs. How do you divide those up? We run through those kind of conversations a lot here. And I think that's one of the things that I would, folks that are thinking about this, I would have a long discussion with folks about whether you should do it on a water bill or whether you should tie it to a property tax bill. Because that would be a lot easier way to the property itself, which is really what this meant to be, is meant to be tied to a property, not to a user on the property. It's meant to be tied to the land itself. So that's a conversation that I can be convinced to go. Non-payment enforcement is tough when it's not attached to a water bill. It's on the water bill, they don't pay, we just turn the water off, which gets pretty good response. But if it's not attached to the water bill, there's no water to turn off. We end up having to file a lien, which I don't think we've even done that yet. We've tried to work with property owners to reconcile. So that's not a real effective way because those liens usually just kind of go away over time, especially with someone that's just not been paying the property. And then we struggle with the normal thing of this new development, keeping track of when stuff comes in. We have a separate planning and zoning that's a city county working with them to make sure we know everything that's happening in town, or we sort of produce against lack of adequate addressing. For a lot of undeveloped or public properties, there's not necessarily an address attached to that. So when we send out bills, a lot of times people don't know where that bill is for. We don't really even know what the bill is for until we dig deep into our data. It's another issue. Rate increases are really politically sensitive. Most folks here have gotten used to our rate, but if we jump that up too much, we would get around top. And we just trying to keep ongoing public outreach and education about the stormwater utility itself, not just stormwater in general, but what the utility is doing, what's the positives about it, what's data. We need to do a better job of that. So next slide. And then real quick by the numbers, the rate is still $3.36 a month. It didn't get increased amounts here before, and then 8 years I was gone and never was increased. We are talking about one this year, but it's tough because we have 2-year terms for our commissioners and they're up for election again. So it'll be tough to get that through, but we're just short on our revenue at this point. That's just saying the slide. We're exceeding our operations now. Our revenue is not meeting our operations costs, and so we are not putting any money away for capital now. Our estimated revenue is about $632,000, which is enough to pay the bills, but it is tight. We need to do a revenue increase very soon, especially because we haven't implemented the capital plan like we committed to at the time, and we need to do that. And if we're gonna start doing some capital work and borrowing some money, use some money away, we've got to raise that rate. And I put on here the top 5 contributors just so folks can see kind of the bills that $5 payers have. And like these 5 entities, I never heard a complaint from any of them about these bills. They understand that once they knew it was justified, and so that's all I had. Thank you all.